Welcome back. This is the Alchemist Nation podcast. My name is Walter Amarillo, and I get the pleasure of traveling all across the country, talking to real estate professionals, large and small, just like the Bigger Pockets podcast, except we're deep into the future. Today, we're talking to Willie Mandell, who is going to talk to us about the BRRRR strategy. He's an investor out of Boston, and he's come a long way in the past few years. Willie, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on.
So, Will, we were just talking about, well, we haven't talked about Boston prices yet, but being an investor in Boston, you found a way to get up to 50 units. You're using the BRRRR strategy. Before we dive into how you got into real estate, if you could just define what BRRRR stands for.
Buy, rehab. What is it? Dude, I've done it so many times. Sometimes I forget what it stands for. Buy, renovate, rent, and refinance, and then
Yes.
repeat. Some people throw another R in there, and it's repeat.
Repeat.
But yeah, no, buy, renovate, refinance, and repeat.
That's
And
right.
that's essentially all we're doing. It's just the BRRRR strategy is just a method that helps you get your money back out of the property. People look at the buy and hold strategy and they say, hey, I need to put a down payment down. And my when you put that down payment now my money is stuck in the property for the next, 10 years or 15 years. All the BRRRR strategy means is that we're creating equity and we're not just going out and buying a property at retail value. If it's worth 500, we're trying to get it at 4 or 3, so we can create some value, do some renovations, create some value, and then pull our capital back out through a refinance, making our money, being able to utilize our money again instead of having it stuck in the property.
Yeah, you want to stay relatively liquid, and you want to get your down payments back. How long does the BRRRR strategy take? Like, what would you say is a typical average time before you're able to refinance?
I would say typically a year. Our renovations don't take that long. I would say if we do a lot of gut renovations because we like to try to create a lot of equity, try to create a lot of, we try to find things that are not cosmetic. We're not looking for, kitchen updates, changing out some appliances and a couple of cabinets. We're looking for most of the stuff that we run into. We're gutting it down to the studs. We're involved in several right now where, guys are there pulling everything out from all the electrical, all the plumbing, floorboards are coming up, everything. We'll dump a bunch of money back into it, but our equity spread, the difference between what we owe and what the property is worth, is massive now. So let's say our average renovation from start to finish, from the time we pull the demo permit to the time we get the certificate of occupancy, roughly 9 months. We'll probably lease up over the next 3 months. And I would say this, I would say that we're qualified to refinance within 12, but we typically hold on to the property for another year. We're typically trying to refinance within the first 24 months. That extra year is it basically shows the bank that we can produce the income that we say we're going to produce. The leases are real. They're not just, it shows bank statements and money now coming in. They have a lot more confidence to kind of increase that loan to value ratio at the end of it.
I like that you mentioned 24 months. So here's what I ran into when I first started this. And we incorporated the BRRRR because it makes the most sense. Is I thought I was going to get my money back in 6 months. Right. I thought I was like, okay, like I went in, I'm doing the BRRRR and I go to all the lenders and they're like, yeah, we want to age the deeds 2 years.
Yeah.
We'll refinance it, but we're not going to give you any cash out, right? In that first year, that first 6 months. So, how did you discover it took 2 years to get your money back?
I have a little bit of a history in banking as well. So I mean, I just ask a lot of questions. I used to work for Citizens. I used to work for Bank of America. They're more residential mortgage lenders, but just asking the right questions. I talk to a lot of different lenders. When I go out there and I go shopping, I just a lot of people have relationships with one bank or two banks. I try to go out there and build relationships with 10 or 15 local community banks, because if one says no, somebody else will say yes. And if 3 people say no, I'm going to find the one that says yes. And just asking the right questions. What products do they have? And I mean, the thing about I don't do anything with residential anymore. And that's the other thing about it is everything that I do, I own in an LLC now, and the LLC goes and gets commercial lending. And with commercial, you can get really creative. I mean, anything that you can really imagine can be written into a commercial deal if it makes sense for the bank and it makes sense for you as well. That's why I like commercial. I mean, I do, here's the thing, if you really get deep into it and the bank really understands your business model, a lot of times you won't have to do the refinance anymore. So I very, very rarely have to do the refinance anymore. And that's why I sometimes forget what the BRRRR stands for, is they're actually giving me a temp to perm loan. meaning I go in, I have 12 months of interest only, just where I'm paying interest only on the construction, and then it automatically converts to interest and principal into a permanent loan. They say, how do you get your money back out then? Well, they do what's called, and again, this is you having relationships and building a reputation over time, and earned out. So if they basically see that at the end of the day, we're sitting at a, let's call it 60% loan to value ratio, just to make the math really simple, then the property is worth $1 million. The debt on the property total is worth 600,000. Instead of them going, hey, now you need to refinance it and go to another lender or whatever, they're basically going to say, we already know what you're trying to do. We're going to give you an earned out if you hit these metrics, and if you hit these numbers and you hit these rent numbers, we're basically just going to give you a check all the way up to 75%. So they would basically give us a check for $150,000 at the end of that project if we met that loan to value ratio.
That's pretty amazing. And they verify that through, I assume, an appraisal.
An appraisal, yeah. There's an appraisal on the front end, and basically says, here's what the property is worth right today, and here's what the property would be worth if you do all the things that you're going to do. We go through our construction period, we go through our lease up period, we send the leases back over to the bank. They say, okay, yes, you hit your debt coverage ratio, you hit your loan to value ratio. Yeah, if you owe 600,000 on a property that's worth $1 million, here's a check for another 150,000. Good luck. Now you're at a 75% debt to income ratio. We still have a very secure loan. We have a property that's worth $1 million, or a mortgage on a property that's worth $1 million. You only owe us 750. The rents cover the debt. Everything else, go ahead and we'll come back to us on the next one. So yeah, it's about building a reputation and going with those local community banks. Though I used to work for Citizens and Bank of America, would never go to them for a mortgage today. No.
No, and I don't know if you're cool with sharing. I don't know if your bankers want you to share it, but what bank are you working with right now? Who do you think is the best bank in Boston?
I wouldn't say the best bank in Boston. I have a really good relationship with Needham Bank. Really good relationship with what was formerly Wellesley Bank, but was bought out by Cambridge Trust. Do a lot with Eastern Bank as well. They have their own. It's hard to say the best because they have their own niches, so to speak, right? Eastern Bank is super aggressive with their rates. And again, please don't, depending on when you're watching this video or whatever, like I said, I don't want anybody to quote me on this things, but I find that Eastern Bank is super good with their rates, right? So if we have an existing product, something we've owned for 5 years, I'm going to refinance and bring it over to Eastern Bank. Needham Bank is a lot better with their construction lending, right? If I have a extensive construction project, I might want to go to Needham Bank and talk to them about their construction deal. Wellesley is, and this may sound horrible because this is not the business that I'm in, but we're our trophy property bank, so to speak, right? So it's the stuff that it's not the best cash flowing property, but it's like in the South End or something like that. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's more or less, they understand that market a little bit better. They work with a lot of upscale clients, a lot of big money clients. So we found that they were more liberal with their debt coverage ratios and stuff like that when you had a property that was in a prestigious neighborhood, so to speak.
That's a cool strategy, and that's a great tip. Different banks have different products, and being able to understand like where they're at and the value of each one is really, really key. How long have you been doing this, Willie?
15 years now. I'm an old man. I sound like an old man when I say 15 years. I'm 37. I got in the game early though. I got in at 23. Fresh out of college, bought my first 2-family in Quincy, and I've just been rolling with it ever since. Rode the market all the way down in 2008, 2009, 2010, had some rough year, and then rode the market all the way back up. And, here we are, 15 years later.
That's pretty amazing. So you went through the crash. What did you do during that crash? Like what was your strategy during it?
Pray, hold on. ride that shit all the way down. No, I understand economics, and I understood. I went to school. I went to Northeastern, so I like I said, studied finance, was a finance major, and through all of school, I actually started my career at Massasoit Community College. Did 2 years there. I'm one of the rare people. Most people don't know this, but Northeastern's a 5-year school. It's not a 4-year degree. So when I tell people I spent 7 years in college, they're like, dude, like, what's wrong with you?
That took a while.
That's a little while. I spent 2 years at Massasoit, and there was a 2-year program that basically said, you do well we help you get into, you know, the 4-year school, the, you know, the big college. And I did well there. The problem is when I got to Northeastern, they were like, yeah, we're going to accept you, but we're not taking any of these credits, right? So I basically started a 5-year program all over again, i.e. I spent 7 years in college. So my point is, you know, through that 7 years, two of my favorite courses are micro and macroeconomics.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about economics, it's basically the study of the economy, the study of money, how money flows through the economy, how the Fed controls interest rates, recessions, market surges. And I say that because one of the things that I've learned is that we work in cycles. And I understood, just like as I am today, right? As I'm holding on through the pandemic, I have some tenants that are not paying. I have some trouble today, but I understand that we work in cycles. And if I can hold on as we ride this roller coaster down, when we start to feel like we're at the bottom, 2010, 2011, 2012, great opportunities, terrific opportunities, because most people are running one way. They're running scared. They're still watching the national news. They're still watching what's going on throughout the country. I understand that, yes, economics is nationwide, but we also have a local economy here in Boston, which operates very different than New Orleans, which operates very different than Las Vegas. I looked at the local economy here and said, no matter what, people are going to continue to send their kid to MIT. They're going to continue to send their kid to Harvard. We have some of the best institutions here, some of the best schools, some of the best hospitals. It's only a matter of time before this thing comes roaring back. Good purchases, 2012, 13, 14. Some of the things I bought in 2012 have doubled in price, or doubled in value, tripled in value since 2012. So just understanding economics and just holding on when bad times come, and then making some smart moves, financially.
Yeah, that's some great advice. So where is the Boston market right now? Do you think you're at the top? Do you think you're on your way down? What's Boston looking like for you?
This is difficult. I mean, if we were having in 2008, we had, a housing crisis, stock market crisis. Pandemic is, I've never experienced this, so it's a little different. I do think that there is going to be some pullback, but so when I say that, I mean, you still have a ton of people out of work, a ton of people on unemployment. Unemployment's been extended. Right now, it feels like things are normal. That's
Yeah.
because there's been artificial stimulus by the government, right? Stimulus checks literally coming, stimmy checks coming.
Yeah.
And unemployment's been extended like crazy. Interest rates are super, super low, right? I'm 2.5% on my house. My first house was 675 in 2006. I'm 2.5%. Never thought I would see anything like that. Money being printed, just pumped into the economy. All that stuff has to go away at some point, right? You can't continue just to basically drive up the national debt. You can't continue to have people on unemployment. You can't continue to have mortgage forbearances. You can't continue to have eviction forbearances. Eventually, that stuff starts to go away, and then you start to see where we really are economically. And when that happens, I think the government. This is just my opinion. Again, I'm not an economist, but I feel like especially with and again, I don't want to sound like I'm being political here, but with a Democratic president, they're not going to let us fall into the abyss. They're basically going to say, we're going to let this thing trickle out little by little. So you're going to see some effects. I think there's going to be some pullback. You're going to see I would see stabilization. I don't think prices are going to continue to surge. I think they're going to just stabilize and maybe come down just a little bit. But I think there's going to be some inventory. I think there's going to be a lot of inventory over the next couple of years. We're not seeing it just yet. But my personal opinion is there's a lot of people who were around in 2008, who know the game, who knows how this works, and are saying, I want to get out now before shit hits the fan, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if you're 65 right now, I'm seriously thinking about selling. If I'm 70, I'm seriously thinking about just cashing in, taking my money and running now. And I think that those are the people that have been holding on for a little while. You're going to start to see that inventory start to loosen up. Sorry to give you a long-winded example, or an answer, but that's just the way I feel.
There's no quick answer to that, right? There's so many variables. There's no quick answer to it. And I like the way you responded, because there's no crystal ball. And we agree, like at this point, the government should have let things kind of handle themselves. I think they overstimulated the economy, and we're going to pay for that later.
Right.
And I don't mean the investors. I think it's the normal person who's going to pay for that. The investors are fine. We're holding assets. They just inflated our assets.
Right.
But for normal people who are not holding assets, they're the ones in most trouble. So As far as rolling it out, like you're right, a Democrat is they're not caring about the market. They don't care whether the market goes up or down. They're just concerned that people get taken care of.
Right. And again, I mean, again, I don't want to sound like I'm, a political head. Democrats do what they do.
Same.
Other people do it. Republicans do what they do. But at the end of the day, free market enterprises. I mean, like I said, you can't control the market. You can only have so much control over the market. The market is going to do what the market does, and supply and demand is a real thing. I mean, that's the other thing. People always ask me why I'm a big fan of Boston. Supply and demand at the end of the day. I mean, Boston, people want to live here. People want to be here. People get paid big bucks to be here. And there's a limited supply of housing. There's a limited supply of land. I drive through Boston right now, and I'm kind of amazed at how some of these buildings get put through ISD, or some of the, I mean, like that was a gas station. Now there's a 17-story building right there, downtown. And but there's still a very limited supply of land, a very limited supply of housing. So the people like myself and people like you who own property, like you said, the prices are just going to go through the roof. They continue to go up. That's just the way it is. It applies to everything. It applies to, bread. I mean, we look at the pandemic, limited supply of face masks. And when everybody needs one, you can sell them on eBay for 10 grand. Limited supply of toilet paper, right? When everybody needs it, I mean, when people are hoarding it, you basically turn it around. And I remember, I think it was Kevin Hart, one of the actors. He had a comedian. One of his specials, he was talking about buying face masks. I think it was 100 face masks for like $10,000 he bought off of eBay because everybody was going crazy, at the time. But it applies to everything. That's just the way, and that's why I said economics was one of the favorite classes I've taken in school. I took in school because you really understand the way money works, and if you understand that, it works in the stock market. It works, in different aspects of life. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There are certain people that are going to get hurt by it, and the government is going to try to do their best to protect them, but it can only go on for so long.
Yeah, Willie, I'm having fun with this because you have that financial background. But like when you look at the stock market back in March, right? It dropped for COVID. We saw no change in real estate. We saw, in fact, inventory tighten up, prices go up immediately. So it just shows that even though 08, was a real estate crisis and that affected the market, the markets are separated, right? Real estate and the stock market have really no correlation or very little correlation as far as, asset prices.
And that's why I love it. So I'd say two things about the stock market. When I say running scared, and I've said this a little bit, and again, I'm not a stock investor. I actually had my license back in 2007. I got my stockbroker's license, my Series 7. For those of you familiar with the business, I had my options trading license as well, so I know a little bit. But I'm a buy and hold investor in real estate at the end of the day. But you're right. In April, that's when the stock market took a little bit of a dip as well. And I tell people all the time, and I preach this, because if you are running with the crowd, you are never going to make any money. That is, every single time I do one of these, I have a talk. Do not run with the crowd. When the stock market crashed in April, I was licking my chops. I basically just said, I'm going to go buy Carnival Cruises. I'm going to go buy Marriott. I'm going to go buy Disney. I'm going to go buy, because they were basically selling at 40%, at a 40% discount, right? Yeah. Eventually, right, everybody's running scared because of the pandemic. They're basically saying, I don't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But think about it. The pandemic is going to end at some point, right? It's going to end at some point. Whether I didn't think it was going to go on this long, but it's going to end at some point. And what's going to happen when it ends? People have been cooped up in the house for 18 months globally, not just in the States, not just where you are, but globally. People have been in the house for 18 months now. People are going to be airports are going to be crowded as hell. Hotels are going to be crowded as hell. Disney World is going to be crowded. Just anything to do. Uber is going to be crazy. So all these stocks, I picked up Uber as well. All these stocks that were selling at a discount, 40% off in April, are going to be absolutely crazy. I'm already up 65% in the last 10 months or so, just on those stock picks. So I would encourage people. You have to be, if you really want to be wealthy, if you really want to make something, if you want to become a millionaire, a multi-millionaire, do not run with the crowd. When your aunt gives you financial advice and your cousin gives you the same financial advice and your uncle gives you this and your brother is doing this and everybody's telling you to hop into this, and look at it with a side eye, because if everyone's doing it, not everybody's going to be successful. Not everybody can be successful. That's by definition, that's what success is, that everybody can't be Beyonce. Everybody can't be LeBron James, right? I mean, those people wouldn't be unique if everybody had those same skills and those same talents. So running and at least looking in the opposite direction is going to be key to your success moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think everybody can be successful, but not at the same thing. You've got to diversify. You got to not do what everybody else is doing. Be a little unique. And at the same time, real estate is one of those things that, has been consistent. If you stay in real estate long enough, you'll be successful, right? Like it's not a difficult strategy. It's just don't give up on it.
Right,
Like
right.
time in the market, not timing the market, right?
It's boring, and that's why people don't like, typically people like, we live in a couple, and this is making it sound real old, but we live in an instant gratification society. People just want everything tomorrow. If they can't, they want to be able to say, I did this, and then 6 months later or 2 months later or whatever like that, they want to be able to show it off on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the way real estate is. I have a building that's just basically sitting there for 15 years, and I mean, what am I going to show off? I'm going to print out appraisals and show it off. Like I said, it's just so it's less desirable to people, right? Real estate is boring. You basically collect rent and you pay your mortgage. And the next month you collect rent and you pay your mortgage. And it's really boring, but it's a real wealth building strategy. You're right. It's one of the oldest businesses in the world. I think, I read somewhere, it's real estate and prostitution, two oldest businesses in the world, and they're still around today.
Nobody wants to do either one,
Either one, I would argue prostitution is a little bit more short-term money, and I
short-term.
Stay away from it. But two oldest businesses in the world. People need a place over their head. There are no tech solutions in my mind that are coming down the pipeline for real estate, right? There are no tech. Elon Musk is not going to create a way for us to get away from needing a roof over our head. So it's a solid business that we're going to need. And again, supply and demand. Our global population continues to grow. The earth isn't getting any bigger. Boston population continues to grow. Boston isn't getting any bigger.
Although we do every so often create something like the Back Bay, right? You just toss some dirt in the water.
And tell you the truth, that's actually what I was thinking as I said that. But I was like, but I didn't want to get too deep. I was like, yes, okay, we've done a couple of landfills here and there. East Boston technically wasn't there a while ago, but I don't think that we're filling any, I don't think we're filling in Dorchester Bay anytime soon to create more real estate. Maybe we start building up, but maybe the three families are a thing of the past, and maybe we start going a little bit higher. But even so, the person that owns a three family is going to own that land and have the opportunity to, kind of build up if the zoning, goes away. But yeah, it's just about, like I said, staying sharp and recognizing opportunity as an investor.
I like that. So Billy, you've done a lot. You've done a lot in this business. You've been very successful from staying in it, sticking to it. How'd you get into it in the first place? I know you got a pretty prestigious degree from Northeastern, but what made you go from finance to real estate investing?
My grandparents, my grandmother specifically. My grandmother got into the business 1950s, and she made a good living for herself, right? And she used to always preach to me that it's not difficult. And it's one of the things that I try to preach to people today is, though I have a degree from Northeastern, you don't need a degree from Northeastern to do this. It's a very simple business. It's simple math. If you're bringing in $4,000 a month and your expenses are $3,000 a month, you're in the money. And all you're doing at the end of the day, that's all you're doing, right, is trying to increase that 4,000 to 4,500, and you're trying to increase or decrease that 3,000 to 2,500. And you went from, basically collecting $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month. And that's basically what she told me. She was a Black woman moving up from Macon, Georgia to Boston in 1950s. Bought a couple brownstones. They weren't brownstones. They weren't. And this is, when people talk about neighborhoods changing and things like that, she bought in the South End. The South End was the slums in the 1950s. There was no Prudential Center. Prudential Center came, I believe, the end of 1950 or the end of the late 1950s or early 1960s. With the Prudential Center came Copley, the kind of the rise of Newberry Street and its luxurious name and everything else. And then the neighborhood starts to change, right? And she does really well for herself by just literally holding on to those pieces of property. And I just kind of followed that very simple model. I looked at when I was getting out of school, I bought my first home in Quincy because I didn't really want to live in the city. I grew up in the city. I just really wanted a backyard and a dog and some peace. City tends to be a little bit too dense for me. I wanted a grill and some other things, but it's just I wanted to be able to go outside and just not have cars right there in front of me. But yeah. I looked at neighborhoods within the city and I basically just said, where do I see development happen? Where do I see the next South End? Where do I see the push, right? If you look at neighborhoods like South Boston, I was working down in South Boston, I had my real estate license, And I'm driving down the streets of South Boston, and on every single corner, there's a real estate development project. And I said, this is not sustainable, right? There's only so many. I'm driving down and I'm looking for ugly houses. I'm driving for dollars, and they're far and few in between. So this is not sustainable. If everyone down here is a developer, where are they going to go when they run out of inventory? Yep. Oh, you know what's right next door? Dorchester. Dorchester is right next door. South Bay is right next door. On the other side of that is Roxbury. Roxbury is right next door, right? Mass Ave and everything else. So I basically took and had a 10-year view and basically said, how do I get ahead of the market? How do I get ahead of where they are? And I promise you, and this is not me talking, talking smack, they're here in Dorchester now. The same South Boston developers that were here doing on every single corner are now 10 years later, they're in Dorchester. And I get mailers from them every single day. Do you want to sell your property? Do you want to trade in this 3-family so we can turn it into condos? Maybe if you give me the right number.
Right. But you're gonna pay.
Everything has the right number, but I don't think you want to pay the number I'm looking for, right? If it has a what is it, 8 zeros and behind it or whatever it is, then yeah, we'll talk. But other than that, then but that's what it is. It's getting started. My grandmother pushed me to get into the business. I watched what she did, and then just try to do my best to look ahead of the market. And if you ask me where that was today, I actually bought down in Worcester, and I'm a big believer in that market. I've been, talking about it for the last couple of years now as well. The only reason I pulled back out is because I felt like I was spreading myself too thin. I was already super heavy in the Boston market. I understood the Boston market. And what most people don't realize is being a landlord is not the same everywhere. I think you have to develop your niche. You have to understand your niche. I understand my clientele, my tenants. I understand their expectations. I understand whether I can put in granite or Formica countertops. I understand whether I can go with Lowe's cabinets or whether I have to go with a slow close, hardwood type of deal. I understand what flooring I need to put in, everything else. When I went to Worcester, that client base changed, that expectation changed. Do I put on hardy board siding or is it vinyl siding? Do I, it's just a different market and a different expectation. Not bad, not good, just different, right? And I'm not old, but I'm an old dog, and I really didn't want to learn any new tricks, to be honest with you. So I basically said, okay, we did really well. We bought a property. I think we bought it at $250. We sold it at $350, put a little money into it, probably walked away with a little cash. Good experience. If I was starting off today, if I was trying to build a portfolio, and I believe in the economics in Worcester, the train, Amtrak coming from the center going down to South Station. People can work in Boston, be back in Worcester, buy a loft condo for $300,000 and still make $100,000 in Boston and still take that train in. Baseball team going out there, a lot of different things going on in Worcester that are good for the community. And I believe that it's going to be one of those spaces that really kick off. But just to answer your question specifically, my grandmother, and then just me, just kind of understanding the way neighborhoods change and just looking ahead to the next opportunity.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. Most of my units are in Fall River. So I look at Fall River as it's not Worcester, right? We don't have the train yet. It took Worcester 10 years to finally get to where it's at after the train had already been there. So you look at Fall River and we're maybe 15, 20 years away from having that kind of growth. So, my girlfriend owns some property in Worcester, and I keep telling her, I'm like, for me, I'm selling some stuff from Fall River, buying bigger things. But Worcester is one of those things where it's like, you might just want to hold. Right. Every so often I'm like, yeah, let's just sell it. And then every so often I'm like, but that one's going to appreciate way faster. And it kind of makes sense to hold those a little bit longer.
I mean, it's a good too. And that's the kind of the mindset I have. I was like, how do I diversify my portfolio a little bit? And for you, it might make sense. You're already there. And if you have a solid management backing there, I would consider holding on to it. I mean, things are changing. So.
Yeah, I mean, Quincy, right? You bought your first house in Quincy 15 years ago. That thing's probably worth 3 times as much now, right?
Yeah, 3. Yeah, I'd say it would at least doubled. I mean, Boston's crazy. Boston is almost tripled in value. The multis here, I would say they've pretty much doubled in the last 10 to 15 years. It's absolutely crazy. I actually sold that multi. I live right up the street, bought a single family a few years back, kids now and everything else.
Nice.
So it's a different lifestyle. But yeah, I mean, definitely, the house is right down the street for me, and I would say it's definitely doubled in value. And that's, it's a boring business. I mean, that's waiting 15 years for anything is boring. But at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, you're still going to need money 15 years from now. If you're still
Right.
alive, you're still going to need money 15 years from now. You know, and
Rents go up,
yeah,
value goes
that's
up.
that's just it. I mean, you know, and we haven't even touched upon the you know, I just made a YouTube video about how the property I told you about in 2012, we bought it, and let's say we only had about 7 grand, and I'll share this with you really quick. We only had about 7 grand. More the down payment with closing costs and everything ended up being like 15. So we basically went to her cousin and said, let's borrow 7 grand from you. And here's how we're going to pay you back. Once we buy this property, the 3 rents that are coming from it are basically going to spit us off $1,000 a month. We'll give you $1,000 over the next 8 months. So you're going to make extra $1,000 for lending us this 7. Great deal for him. Boom,
Yeah.
boom. He said, here's the 7,000. We gave the mortgage broker our 7 plus, you know, his 7, 15,000. We took advantage of the property, paid him back in 8 months. And now the thing's spitting us off $1,000 a month. The real kicker is the thing goes up from 350 or 390 or whatever it is to, let's call it 500. We pull cash out through a cash out refi, pay off her student loans, $50,000. And she also went to Northeastern, $50,000 in student loans that she had left. A couple of years later, thing goes up in value again. We pull out another $30,000, have a luxurious wedding. 2 of us get married, blah, blah, blah. A few years after that, thing is worth $800,000 now. We put a $600,000 mortgage on it, right? Because the rents are also going up. The rents are like 18, 20 now. We basically tear down our house and put another story on the thing, adding almost 1,500 square feet from a $15,000 purchase. That's the power of real estate, and that's what people don't want to, you know, don't realize, and they don't want to hold on. It's not sexy. It's not Bitcoin. It's not GameStop. It's not the sexy things that, you know, people put out there. But it's a real thing. You think about that: a $15,000 investment that we actually got back, paid for wedding, paid for home renovation, a major home renovation, and paid off $50,000 in school debt. No better investment I've made in my life.
Absolutely. No, Willie, I love it. And the strategy makes a lot of sense. You've basically broken down a lot. And I know we actually run a lot longer in this podcast than normal, but like the value that you've given here is just so huge. Willie, if somebody wanted to bring you a property or learn more about you and what you're doing, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
Please bring me a property.
Yeah.
You can, you know, and this may sound arrogant as hell, but just Google me, Willie Mandell. You can Google me at my YouTube channel. Please follow my YouTube channel, subscribe. I'm going to be dropping a lot of content on there this year. YouTube, W Mandell. You can my website, Mandrell Co. Mandrell MANDRELLCO.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Connect me on social platforms. You can connect with me there. Or you can just email me right to the website, or my email directly is wmandrell@gmail. So WMANDRELL@gmail.com. We also, if you're in the Boston area, if you're in Connecticut, we actually have, if you go to wealthbuilderclubs.com, we have a national network of about 3,000 members. We're in about 10 different cities right now as well. So definitely join those. We have a ton of webinars, ton of educational events. We actually have something this evening as well. So.
Nice. Excellent. I love that you're giving back, helping people build their wealth.
What it's all about, man.
That really is what it is. You know, we got a mission to build 100 millionaires, right? So that's
nice. I like it.
So the only way to do that is you really got to build a business, or you got to buy real estate, and you're doing the same thing. So you're in the same arena with us, helping people out, just paying it forward, giving it back. So I appreciate that. And for everyone who's listening, if you could go to Alchemist Nation on iTunes, look up the podcast on iTunes, write us a good review. If you got some value out of what Willie Mandell is doing today, go check out his YouTube channel. There's a lot of value he's been putting out there. He was suggested to me by one of my close friends who said, this guy is just crushing it. You've got to do an interview. And I think that today we learned a lot. We learned a lot about Boston. We learned about economics. So you've gotten a lot of value here. So definitely follow and continue to consume the content, because what he's putting out there is solid. This is financial. I wouldn't say it's financial advice, but it is financial education. And this is the sort of stuff that, your parents just didn't have. They didn't give to your aunt and uncle. That, unless they have what Will's got, unless they've built that wealth, you don't want their advice. Right. So as we sign off, well, if you go back to 20-year-old you, right? If you go back to like the beginning where you started and give yourself 3 pieces of advice, what are those most powerful 3 pieces of advice you give yourself?
3 pieces of advice, 20-year-old Will. stop chasing women so much. Focus on your business. Find one good girl that you could just hang out with and just, and focus on your business. Two would be, you're not going to make it to the NBA, so save your knees. You're not making it to the league. You're going to cap out at 5'11", and that's just it. I've been 5'11" since I was 16, so I swore to God that I was like, oh, if I'm 5'11" at this height, I'm just going to keep going. And I really thought I was making it to the league at some point. At least D1 college. Just save your knees, bro. You're not making it. And number three is just stop. How do I put this? Just stay focused, and when people have doubt, feed off of that. Just continue to feed off of that, and just kind of continue to do your own thing, and don't worry about the doubters. There was a lot of people that when I was headed to Dorchester, when I was thinking about hopping into real estate, there were a lot of people that were like, that's not the business, that's not the right move. Corporate world, this, get a job, do this. So just continuing to believe in yourself. I think that my portfolio would have been probably double the size it is today, had I not had that extra doubt there. Like, am I doing the right thing? And should I be selling? Should I be moving on? Is now the right time? So just, fully committing, fully believing in myself, and just going for it. And I think if I did that, like I said, I'd be much better off as well. And I think there are a lot of young people out there right now that want to do certain things, that want to get into real estate, that are listening to this, that are just kind of like, is that the right move? Just, avoiding that doubt and continuing to believe in myself. So.
Yeah, that is huge advice. Honestly, I like that. Don't chase women, just go and build your business, right? One girl that, like, it's not all you need, it's what you want, right? It allows you to move faster. And then
saving your knees. Saving your knees. You're not making it to the league.
Yeah, you're like, don't think you're going to be an all-star, right? Some of you, maybe, 1%, a fraction of 1% maybe, but if you're realistic about it, the odds just stacked against your favor. And then just build faster, right? Like build a great portfolio. Don't worry about what other people are saying. And you did the math, right? Well, you knew early on these deals made sense, and other people would talk you out of it. So staying in it. Willie, you have the alchemist mindset. You are an alchemist. You're helping people. You got the abundance mindset. You're not concerned about competition. You're just saying, hey, look, I'm going to do the best that I can. If I can't take down all the deals, I'm just going to take down the ones that I like. I appreciate you so much, bro. Thank you for your time. Good luck in your next calls today. Cheers to your success.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Hell yeah, brother. We're going to keep this going. Thank you, man. Cheers.
All right. See you.